Well, hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday. Really appreciate you all for taking some of your time to join us this evening. Excuse me just a second. Thank you for joining us this evening. I truly appreciate the fact that you could be doing many other things, but you decide to spend some time with us at the Ultimate Wellness Group. So tonight is going to be a wonderful show. We have Victer Muhammad in the house. We have some very interesting subjects that we're going to talk to and, of course, answer your questions. And please share the show, number one. And then number two, please remain on until the end because we're going to have a short discussion about the book club. Okay. We're going to have, the pictures that we were missing last week. Shaolin Soldier, thank you for coming in, bro. In the name of Allah, the beneficent, the most merciful, all I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. I further bear witness that Allah came in the person of Master Victer Muhammad, taught one from among us, and you see him there on that book that this show is founded on, How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us and prepared one for us, that being the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who is leading us in this current dark time, giving us valuable information that we would be very wise to follow. In their names, I greet you in the words of peace of Assalamu alaikum. And again, if anybody is here and they're not used to hearing those words, it just means that I'm praying for peace for you when I say Assalamu alaikum. But also in that introduction, I'm also saying that I pray that God guides me, my spirit, my mind, and Brother Victor's spirit and his mind as we do the best we can to give you valuable information that can definitely change your life if we decide to apply it, right? We hear a lot of people say that knowledge is power. Knowledge is only power if you apply that knowledge and use it to start making some changes in your life from where you are to take you in a better direction. So again, thank you everybody for coming in. We're going to get a few shout outs and then we're going to get directly in the show. Sister Leroya, walaikum salam. Glad you are here. Sister Queen, Khalila Muhammad, and Erica Perez. Walaikum salam to all. Sister Erica Perez is doing some pretty big stuff, you all. So we'll get to that towards the end. I hope you can stay, Erica Perez. But if not, I haven't had a chance to reach out to you recently, but I will so that we can get everything finalized for this book club. And while we're doing this introduction, please, everybody that is interested, that plans on being a part of the book club, please let us know. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and show what we will be reading, right? Because we didn't get a chance to show the book last week. And I just want everybody to be able to see it. So I'm sure most of you know what this book looks like. I already have it sitting out there, but I just thought that that's just a beautiful picture of it, right? How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So please go to store.finalcall.com, and that's where you can get your How to Eat to Live books. And then we also are going to be reading the Unapologetic Guide to, what happened to my thing? There we go. The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, right? So we also want everybody to get that so that we could get our book by the time the first gets here so we can start reading it. So there is our sister Rita Walker, the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. And I also saw on there that she has an introduction to the book by Naeem Akbar. Very, very beautiful brother with some wonderful books himself. That was actually one of the considerations that we read his book. But based on the time that we're in and the things that are going on, just came to the conclusion that this would be a good one to read at this time. So we can definitely always add one of Naeem Akbar's books at a later time, right? So that is what is coming down the pike in January. So I pray that you all will join us, read with us. Sister Erica Perez, who the book club is really her idea and her baby along with me. There'll be a way that you can come on to Facebook and we can have our conversations during the week in between the shows where you can share your thoughts and we can have our discussions and we can definitely get into the deep, profound science of how to eat to live, right? We'll be reading 5 pages a day of this and 4 pages a day of the Unapologetic Black Mental Health Guide. And I think that's going to be very important because, as you all know, or I shouldn't say as you know, I should say, and before I go on, please, you all let me know how the sound and the visual is. Are you all hearing me okay? Does everything sound good today? I believe we got all our Wi-Fi stuff solved. I'm in a new place. And so let me know what you think. Stoaru Tosant Fulton, thank you for coming in. But I just wanted to quickly mention that I have 3 colleagues from Meharry that I looked today, and they, were actually, one of them actually was showing him getting the shot on Facebook, showed a picture of it, and 2 other physicians that I know who are, on their Facebook channels talking about the fact that we need to get this vaccine, and they got the vaccine. So, we got to continue to fight against this monster of Satan out here trying to promote this madness with us. So I just wanted to mention that because, all of us have to stay strong in this period of time. And so all of you that come to the show, I appreciate you. And I definitely pray that the information that I am sharing with you is something that you can take and use because it is based in the truth. So a couple of more shout outs and we're going to get it. Thank you for shouting out the Ultimate Wellness Group Book Club. I just realized how to eat to live volumes. I just received a praise be to Allah. Erica Perez, I sure appreciate you. Erica Perez and I will come on here next week and just give all the specifics. But for right now, I pray that everybody takes the time to get your books. Okay. Frank Muhammad, Philip Muhammad, Hanif Ali. It sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate you all. For Drew Lockhart, thank you. Daisy Muhammad, Daryl Muhammad. Thank you all for giving me a shout out. So look, I'm not going to wait any longer. We're going to go ahead and bring on our special guest, somebody that has done to me a wonderful job by not only dedicating to his craft, but being the best at his craft, and now has afforded me an even greater confidence. I always tell you all that How to Eat to Live is the foundation of what I do. It's the foundation of this show. And whenever somebody can take the confidence I have in that and boost it to another level, that's because they got something that is really powerful and beautiful. And at the end of the day, this is the first time I've ever used anybody's product in my 25-year career, which will be 26 years next month. And so I'm happy to bring on my brother Victer Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam, sir. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. We can both hear each other loud and clear. We just got off. So let's go right into the program. The people have been asking for you, my brother. So we had to bring you on back. And I really appreciate you taking out some time in your schedule to give us some of your wisdom and experience. So can you just open up and, just kind of introduce yourself for those who don't know you and talk a little bit about your experience in the healthcare field?
Yes, sir. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. I have been working in health for the last 37 years. I started my career 37 years ago as an agricultural research scientist. I started in animal physiology and nutrition. I went into animal reproduction and then digestive physiology and nutrition of ruminant animals. And for the last 30 years, I've been involved in biomedical research. I've worked as a researcher at the National Institutes of Health, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, Howard University School of Medicine. I've worked at Novartis and a whole host of other places. And since 1994, I've had my own business, Life Sciences of Washington, where I've served as executive director since 1994, doing research mostly surrounding HIV/AIDS and other STDs, but a whole host of other things like breast and cervical cancer and diabetes and a host of other things. There are many other things that I could mention, but I think that's a summation of my career.
Yes, sir. And with that long career with a lot of different experiences, it led you to produce what you now have out called Immuno Boost 100 and Immuno Boost 19. Can you tell us a little bit about that product that you have produced and what the difference in the 119 is?
We were first contacted in November 1994 by then head of the Abundant Life Clinic in Washington, D.C., Dr. Abdul Alim Muhammad. He had been receiving an interferon alpha product from, I believe, Kenya, Nairobi, and maybe Australia and Japan. At any rate, his supply had been confiscated at the airport, Dulles Airport, I believe by the Food and Drug Administration for the United States of America. And his patients were suffering, and I believe some of them died in the time because he could not get the interferon. And he contacted me at the laboratory where I was working, I was doing graft versus host disease research during that time. And he asked if I could help. Long story short, that was when I was blessed to develop an interferon product that wasn't a pill or a lozenge, but actually it was a liquid. And from November 2094 onward, Dr. Muhammad used that product, and 5 other doctors across the U.S. also used the product. And they receive astounding results from that product. That product has the same properties as the IB100. IB stands for Immuno Boost 100. And yes, that's it. And that has been used since 94. And just a few months ago, we developed a second product, and that product is IB19. The reason for this product is the initial product, the IB100, has demonstrated great properties toward viral infections, arresting viral infections, and almost every other use that a person has used it. And in the last 3 years, we've been surprised by some of the benefits that the product has demonstrated. As a matter of fact, so that we don't take vital time tonight to relive those things, you can go on YouTube and look under Nature's-V or go to YouTube and look at naturesv.com website videos, and you can see videos where we did case studies of that covered the last 27 years of the benefits that have been received by taking that product. And that way we don't have to take up valuable time tonight. And the IB19, based on some of the properties that are contained within the IB19, we believe that those properties will do well at arresting some of the people who have been diagnosed with cancer. We believe that the literature support what we believe. And so we developed and released IB19 as a product that a person who has been diagnosed by their primary care physician can use this product, and we believe that they will get great results from the use of this product.
Yes, sir. Praise the God we serve. I definitely am using it in just about everything that I am working when I work with people on their healing and health journey. So I'm glad you were able to give everybody a little background and understanding of that. Brother Victor, when you were you worked at the NIH, what years and how long were you there, and what kind of experience did you have at the NIH?
I was there about 2 years. I was working at the United States Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C. as an environmental analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And the supervisor I had kept terminating me. But me being a warrior, I don't go down. You know, I just don't do it.
Yes, sir.
And I kept forcing him to rehire me. Literally, I'm not joking. And a brother in the mosque in Washington, D.C., Brother Brian. I think Brother Brian was from Chicago. Brother Brian told me about a job that was available at NIH. They were looking for someone who had an animal background. I had no idea what the job was, but at the time I had a wife, and I was trying to save my marriage because this guy kept firing me at USDA, and every time he would fire me, she would leave me. And so and so I was trying to save my job. So I was willing to take anything that was offered to me. And the man took my resume, and he never let me come on NIH's campus until I was hired. And I never understood the reason for that. Mm-hmm. But if you saw my resume in 1990, this was 1990. If you saw my resume, my name at that time was Victer Williams, Victer R. Williams. And if you saw my resume, you would have thought that I was a Caucasian male just with the listing of credentials, experience, and whatnot, the places where I'd worked. You know, Black men just don't go into animal science and get a PhD in animal science, and we just don't do that in agriculture. And so, long story short, I ended up working at NIH. I was brought on to develop genetically engineered mice and rabbits to incorporate different genes from the HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, in their genetic makeup. So I was making GMO mice and GMO rats. Mm-hmm. And we would use those mice and rats to test different drugs to see if these drugs would work on the phenotype, the genotypes like renal failure, edema, swelling, you know, everything that you would find in an AIDS patient, Kaposi sarcoma. These
Right.
mice exhibited those characteristics. And instead of using humans as study subjects, we used these mice.
Right.
And so that was my introduction into biomedical research.
Wow.
I was at NIH, I think, about 2 years. Back then, it was hard, as it is probably today, 30 years later. It was hard for a Black man to work at NIH in a professional capacity and still present yourself as a man.
Mm.
You had to be condescending, and you had to acquiesce and capitulate, and I'm just not cut that way. And so they made it very difficult for me to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So while you were at the NIH doing what you were doing, were you aware of, or did you have any like knowledge with any of the vaccines that they were working on, or did you have any exposure to the vaccine ideology of the NIH?
Well, once you get into biotechnology, and you're working in animal models, almost anything that you do can be used to make a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
It's not complicated to make a vaccine.
Right.
You know, I don't know why they make it sound so technical and so difficult, and you got to go through so much. There are procedures in place through which you do have to go, but it's not as technical as they make it sound on television. I don't know the reason for that. But yes, to answer your question, yes, sir, I did get exposure to the process of making vaccines. And then later at some private companies, later in my career, more so toward the end of the 90s, I did work in a capacity where I made vaccines, and I also made antibodies, which is very similar to a vaccine, where if it were me, I would recommend that people be willing to take antibodies to a possible infection as opposed to a vaccine. And antibodies take a shorter time to make. In my opinion, they are much safer than a vaccine. And, you know, the whole process is less threatening to the human body than a vaccine. In fact, I don't know of an instance where a person has taken antibodies as a curative property and suffered any negative side effects.
Mm. Yes, sir. I know you and I have had discussions before about vaccines and the ideology of vaccine as a thought is not necessarily a negative thing or a thing that doesn't have some credibility. But what would you say about your ideology on vaccines and what you saw and what you know about NIH and the other American government, I would say, organizations that are involved in producing vaccines?
Well, the U.S. government, and in particular, and the Caucasian race in general, do not have a flavorful background and history when it comes to being above board on medicine and the treatment of any human being that has pigmentation. we have to grow to a point where we remove emotion from decisions and think more like scientists, where you just make decisions based on the metrics and nothing else.
Right.
And you keep emotion out of the equation, because emotions are only germane to the person who is experiencing the emotion. And so when we consider the smallpox latent blankets that were given to the Native Americans, who are our brothers and sisters,
That's right.
and has decimated that population. The introduction of alcohol that was given to that population, and it has decimated them.
That's right.
The heroin that was introduced in China before Mao Zedong basically eradicated it from that country, and now that country has the largest economy in the world today. And when we remember the Tuskegee experiment and the ridiculous, satanic, vile behavior that was placed upon the African American during the Tuskegee experiment, and also we believe that the human immunodeficiency virus was a virus that was manufactured with a deleterious approach. And we believe that that virus being introduced first in the homosexual community here in America, but I think that was just a guise so that it would not be so obvious when it was introduced into the population of the African American in America, around and during the same time that crack was introduced into the African American population. So if you add crack cocaine, stress, police brutality, the social problems from which the African American suffered 30 years ago, and what the African American suffers today, then introducing AIDS or HIV into the body of the African American, it would decimate the population. And that I believe, and we believe, was the intent behind the introduction of HIV into the African American population. And we believe, and I specifically believe, I haven't heard anyone else say this, but I believe it. I believe that the introduction of syphilis during the Tuskegee experiment into the Black community was the dry run, so to speak. It was what we call in science the precursor to HIV being introduced, because it was syphilis, then gonorrhea, and I remember being in college in 1982, and guys would contract gonorrhea, and it was so common among us that we would run to the infirmary, get a shot, and then go right back to the same place where we gotten it the first time.
Right.
And I mean, look, in order to help people, you got to be willing to tell the truth.
That's right.
And even when the truth points an ill finger toward you, you still got to tell it.
That's right.
Because people need to see the human factor in you, so that they will say, well, if he did that and he recovered from it, then I have a chance.
That's right.
You see. And so so I believe that the Tuskegee experiment was the dry run, the precursor to whomsoever was behind the evil machinations of the Tuskegee experiment, which is the U.S. government. And then we can never forget the meeting between former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger and Zbigniew Brzezinski.
That's right.
We can never forget that. And so are all these things just coincidences?
That's
and
right.
Then the release of Ebola, there was no Ebola naturally occurring in what is now DR Congo.
Right.
Ebola was released in DR Congo.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question with specificity, I don't think that the U.S. government has earned the trust of the African American to take anything from the U.S. government or to trust them to verify or serve to serve the validity of anything.
Yes, sir. Powerful statement. And brothers and sisters that are regulars on this show, you heard me say similar statements as we, as a group, read Medical Apartheid and the other vaccine book that we read. And as Brother Victor was finishing his statement about us not being able to trust this government, I'm going back and thinking about these people that I went to medical school with, and I consider some of them my friends. I really do. I've never thought that we were always on the same mental frame of mind. Pages talking about, I trust the science. I went through the science and I trust it. And I don't believe are telling the truth when they say that, because unless you've done enough research on our experience in America when it comes to this medical industry, then it's very difficult for you to take things at face value. So with that being said, Brother Victor, what do you think about the information that was released by the FDA about these vaccines? And what do you think about these vaccines that have just come out from Pfizer and Moderna?
Well, unless you have actually worked in the development of a vaccine, then how would you trust your own understanding of whatsoever was released by these companies? If you have no training, and the average medical doctor doesn't, in the development of a vaccine, if I gave you the material and method portion of the research in developing the vaccine, and you're not trained in that area,
right,
it would be the same as me giving you the blueprint to build a Mercedes 500 SEL. It wouldn't do you any good if you're not a mechanical engineer.
right. Yeah,
You may be a mechanic, but you're not a mechanical engineer.
that's right.
And so you don't have the requisite skills to understand what you're reading. So your colleagues saying that they read this information and they trust it, well, that's not saying very much.
That's right.
Because they're probably not qualified to even understand and interpret the materials and method laid out in the development of a vaccine. Right. Now, secondly, based on what I said a few minutes ago in response to the previous question, my response is very simple. I'm not taking anything. I've never taken a vaccine in my life, and I'm 56 years old. And I've never taken a vaccine. I've never been immunized in my life.
Yes, sir.
And if it be God's will, I will never take one unless I develop the vaccine. Beyond that, I'm not taking it.
Yes, sir. So appreciate that answer. So during your time at NIH, did you ever have any experiences with Dr. Fauci? And if yes, what do you think about him?
Well, toward the end of my tenure at NIH, our lab did some collaborative work with Dr. Fauci's lab. I don't have, I have very little respect for Dr. Fauci as a scientist, as a researcher. I don't know what kind of physician he is. I probably would not go to him for treatment, but as a scientist and a researcher, no, I don't have very much respect for him. In fact, I have very little respect for any of the, well, for most of the scientists at NIH. You have people at NIH who may have been magna cum laude or summa cum laude of their Harvard med school class. And for some reason, people think that making A's or becoming a scholar translate automatically into becoming a good clinician or a good researcher or a good scientist. And that is not the truth.
That's facts.
Because you can memorize some stuff on a paper and then regurgitate it on Friday in an exam and make an A, that makes you smart or intelligent? No, it doesn't. It does not. And so that's what you have a great deal at NIH and most of your research institutions. But what you'll find is that if you walk down the halls of these so-called great research institutions and you peep into the laboratory, you'll find people of the original nation actually in the lab doing the research. Generally, they're Chinese, some are Indian, and some Black, African American. And these are the people who do the work. Now, generally, there is a Caucasian male, or in some instances, a Caucasian female who is usually referred to, they refer to themselves as Jewish or Jews. And they are usually the ones who are the lab head or the lab chief. Right. And these are the ones that you will see on television talking about this laboratory had this development, and that person gets the credit because it's their laboratory, but they didn't do the work. And those are some of the secrets that the general public doesn't know.
That's right.
But Dr. Fauci's lab used to send drugs over to our lab. And because we had the animal model experience, you know, we knew which mouse would be the best mouse to try this drug. We had mice that were genetically immunocompromised. We had mice that didn't have T cells, didn't have NK cells, didn't have B cells, had no thymus, a whole lot of different things. And so we knew that if we were going to test the efficacy of this drug, we would need to do a subcutaneous injection, or we would need to inject the medication through the tail vein of the mouse or the rat. And so Dr. Fauci's lab would send drugs to our lab to try these drugs in the animals. And then people like myself would have to do a necropsy on the animal to test or seek out the effect that the drug may have had on the animal's body by examining the kidneys, examining the liver, looking at the thymus. Was the thymus swollen? Did the animal suffer edema? What kind of toxicity was in the blood? Was there toxicity in the blood of the animal? So these are the kinds of projects that our lab did with Dr. Fauci's lab. Would I trust Dr. Fauci? Would I trust Dr. Fauci's opinion on a medical or scientific experiment Like a vaccine? Absolutely not.
So there you have it, brothers and sisters. I I think I told you all that I listened to a couple of these town hall meetings where Dr. Fauci was on the panel, and I saw a lot of the comments where people were talking about they trust Dr. Fauci and he was a hero and he was the reason why the country has done a good job with the COVID infection, and on and on and on. There are plenty comments like that. And so I really appreciate you, brother, talking about your experience with him, because that has a lot more credibility than a person listening to Dr. Fauci on these paid for by pharma company news agencies to try to sell us on this vaccine. So, just as the Black Doctors Against COVID have on their website that they want to be held accountable for the words that they say and what they're telling the Black community, that's definitely going to happen by a greater power than you really would ever understand. So Frank Muhammad, brother, says, good to see my former ministry class companion from Muhammad Maz number 4. He says he loves you, brother Victor.
I love him too.
Yes, sir.
Before you move on, brother.
Yes, sir.
I've held something for some time because the truth out of season is more powerful than an atom bomb. And so when you're armed with the truth, it requires a measure of responsibility. You mentioned Dr. Fauci, and I responded professionally, ethically, and morally to Dr. Fauci. And I have a right to do that. Several months ago, I was sent a video of this show headed up by Dr. Benjamin Chavis, where whatever is his organization, they brought Dr. Fauci on the show as a guest to discuss coronavirus and the African American community. And in essence, they were co-signing Dr. Fauci on behalf of the African American community.
That's right.
i.e., saying to the African American community that they should trust Dr. Fauci. And I weighed my public response to that for a long time. But if, according to the book of Ezekiel, when you know something and you know the truth and you remain quiet and people get injured because you remain quiet, then God will require the blood of those people who were injured at your hand.
That's right.
But if you warn them and they move on and something causes their death or them to be hurt, then there is no blame on you because you did warn them. Now, in my opinion, Dr. Chavis, Benjamin Chavis, had no right to bring Dr. Fauci on his show, on that show, and then serve as a gatekeeper to the African American community, basically saying to the African American community that they should trust the words of Dr. Fauci. Now, you have a right, if you have a show, you have a right to bring anyone on your show that you want. But right, you must remember that you will also share in the culpability of anything that comes as a result of you using your platform to co-sign what somebody said to the African American community that may cause their death or cause them to be injured.
That's right. That's facts right there.
I did not agree with that.
Yes, sir.
And I still don't agree with it.
Right. Yes, sir. They're going to be held accountable whether they realize it or not. So we'll see over the next few weeks and a few months when people start truly having the time frame to really show what these vaccines are going to do. We'll start to see the information. A few shout outs, and we're going to get to a question, Brother Victor. Christopher Faber Muhammad, Priscilla B. Timmons, Khalid Muhammad, thank you all for coming in. Entertainment, thank you for coming in. Gene Lightly here. Walaikum salam. Len Ali and my brother from all the way from Manchester, UK, official MNIB. Thank you for coming in, bro. George Allen. Smitty Smith. Thank you for coming in. Sister Roy says, I don't trust Dr. Fauci either, and not the medically inclined. And I'm not medically inclined. Okay, yes, ma'am. Let me see. My brother Khalid asked, he says, are there any conditions that could prohibit a person from taking antibodies for a specific condition? Brother Victor, that's for you.
For me?
Yes, sir.
You gonna have to ask him for clarity on that. I don't.
Yeah, it's a little vague, huh? Brother Khalid, specify your question. You know, when you say, are there any conditions that could prohibit a person from taking antibodies for a specific condition? Typically, antibodies are going to be something that would be against an infection. Our bodies produce antibodies against things in the human body, typically infections, but it could be other things like, certain toxins and things of that nature. But let us know a little more specific what you mean by that question, please. Anybody else have any questions before it's time to get up out of here? We thank Brother Victor for taking some time with us. And I think the information that he's giving us is valuable, right? For many different reasons, not only his experience and his interaction with Dr. Fauci and his conclusions, but also the fact that out of all of that experience, as I said earlier, and time in this field, he's produced something that I believe is absolutely necessary for all of us if we are not in the best of health. If you have when I say health journey or healing journey, health journey is what I consider when a person is doing well, but you got to continue to work on it. A healing journey is if you have a problem and you need to do something to improve your health. Well, if you're in that healing journey section, I think his products will definitely help you. And if you are in this world at this moment in time, his product will definitely give you an increased confidence that you'll make it through. Anything that you'd like to share other than what we've already asked you, Brother Victor?
I would address the so-called leadership of the African American community with specificity, but leadership around the world, because I find that all leadership, for the most part, is wanting when it comes to truly leading the people and making decisions that are in the best interest of the people. You have leadership in the African American community where decisions are made that are political.
Right.
Where you make decisions on behalf of the people based on your political agenda. And you withhold information, vital, life-saving information from the people because a person doesn't fit your political agenda.
That's right.
Or because the person doesn't condescend or acquiesce to your demands.
All right.
And there is a price that is being paid to everyone who is doing that.
Absolutely. That's facts right there. So we do have a question for you. A brother wants to know, do you have any knowledge about the mRNA vaccine?
I do not, because to say you have knowledge of something means you have firsthand information. And I don't have any firsthand information about that vaccine. And, you know, I haven't researched it. I haven't read anything about it. I haven't listened to any discussions about it. And the reason that I haven't is because I'm not taking it. And so I don't need to know anything about it.
Yes, sir. Another person asks, Sister Leroya, is Brother Victor on social media? How do we find him?
You can contact me through natures-v.com, natures-v as in Victor.com. You can also contact me at lsow.org. That's my website, Life Sciences of Washington, lsow.org. Those are the two best ways to contact me.
I should have put that in the thing, but I didn't get a chance to, my brother. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions, then Jennifer Barnes, you say, Assalamu alaikum. Once a person takes the vaccine, are they required to wear the PPE any longer? Based on the information that I have, yes, they still suggest we wear the PPE because it's not, the vaccine is not said to cure the problem. It's not said, they don't even know if it's going to stop people from being able to spread it. So yes, they are suggesting that even after you get the vaccine, that you still wear your mask, that you still social distance. So, you know, the specifics about what the vaccine says is that it is supposed to stop the progression of disease. So if you have the virus or you get infected with the virus, that is trying to keep the disease progression. So meaning that the disease, the COVID disease, or the, should I say the SARS-2 infection will not lead to life-threatening disease. So that's what they are claiming when they talk about what the vaccine is supposed to do. Sister Erica Perez says there's significant propaganda being pushed on the Latino community to get the vaccine. What can I do to help get the word out? I would share this video, but they only speak Spanish. Well, we might have to get somebody to translate, sister. And I think in some instances on Facebook and YouTube, they could actually click on the video and click. I think there's something in the settings that will allow the video to be at least the writing underneath it, like the what do they call the when the words come up at the bottom? Closed captioning. The closed captioning will be in Spanish. So I have to do a little more research and check that out for you. But I believe that is available on Facebook and YouTube. Erica Muhammad says, what do you think we can do as a community to put in place a laboratory during this time and start to move?
Well, we started the effort 3 years ago on raising the funds to build a laboratory because, as I said earlier in the year, the only vaccine that I would advise people to take is one that I made. Other than that, I don't trust anybody else. Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't either. And the person who raised the question about what to do after taking the vaccine, whether or not to wear the PPE, I don't think that the PPE will be your biggest problem once you take the vaccine.
That's right.
I don't think that's going to be your biggest problem.
That's facts. So Sister Erica Muhammad also says, towards the production of countermeasures that are more concrete in the service of the people that are desirous of such seriously. I'm not sure if you mean seriousness. I would the answer with he already does. I mean, I think the products that brother Victor has made and has put for use by the public is definitely the best thing we have right now from my vantage point and my experience. How to Eat to Live with brother Victor's brother Victor's products, I think gives us the best chance to survive through this coronavirus COVID-19 madness that we're going through. What would you say, brother Victor?
Well, I would say this, that it is a misnomer for people to believe that getting a disease or getting an infection is a normal thing. It is not. You do not have to get sick. Just because a virus invades your body or bacteria invades your body does not mean that you have to contract a disease. If you were to properly take care of your body, properly eat, fast, stay away from a lot of meat, a lot of crazy food, stay away from shellfish, get together 3 or 4 families, buy a half acre of land and buy you a Holstein or a Jersey cow. Drink whole milk that you milk the cow yourself. You can trust that because you know what you fed the cow.
Mm-hmm.
And so drinking whole milk, baking your own wheat bread from scratch, slicing the bread after you bake it and toasting it hard, almost to the point where you burn it. This is the best thing for you to eat. Eating navy bean soup laden with onions. Put so much onion and garlic in it up to the point where you can't eat it because it's too hot. Really,
Yes,
that's how you should consume your soup. And you should make sauces and gravies to go over your rice, your brown rice, or whatever you're going to eat. If you do that, you'll find that after about 6 months of eating like that, you'll stop getting infections. So you won't need a vaccine because you won't be getting infections. The only reason you get infections is because, first of all, your immune system is compromised by your daily living. And once you start taking medicine, drugs, you compromise your own immune system.
that's right.
You destroy your own body when you start taking medicine and drugs. And then you're going to need medicine and drugs and antibiotics to fight off a bacterial infection because you compromise your body's own ability to fight off an infection. You don't have to get sick. That is not true. I'll challenge any person who wants to claim that it's normal for you to get sick.
So, yeah, that's an asinine statement, and I bear witness to what you're saying, my brother, because I have not had a cold, flu, work around sick people on a regular basis. I haven't had that since 2004, so I bear witness to that. Miriam Shaw says, "What is the new strand of the virus they're now referencing?" I know personally, I can't speak to it. I've heard about it, but I haven't had a chance to do any research. I don't have any material that would give me the ability to assess it and be knowledgeable to speak. So once I do, I'll let you know. You know anything about it, my brother?
I don't.
Yes, sir. Sister Queen, why do these vaccines have 2 parts? What actually is part 1 and what is part 2? In the information that I read, they never explained why. They don't know how long this is so experimental that and that's why I keep saying that for any doctor and for any of these Black people that are having these town hall meetings to say that they believe this is safe, it is such a lie, because the people that have made it and the people at the FDA and CDC and everybody else is talking about the fact that they have no idea. They don't have enough information. They're concerned and worried about the safety. And so there's no information. The information that I saw, they say that you need a second shot, but they don't have any reason to justify why. And so it's just a bunch of experimentation that's happening. And, the only conclusion that I can come to, because of what Brother Victor and I have both said about the nefarious way that this government and these organizations have done us in the past, the first shot is going to do a whole lot of damage, and the second one is going to amplify that damage. What would you say, Brother Victor?
Well, when you're dealing with the immune system and the person or the animal doesn't have a comparable immune system, the first thing that you would do is inject an adjuvant or something to stimulate the immune response. Because once you inject an adjuvant into a biological system like a human or a rabbit, then the immune response is going to rush to that area where you did the injection. And once that's what you want when you want to generate an immune response. So everything is, all the cells, the immune response cells are going to rush to that area and start to deal with that foreign entity that just been injected. Then once it's there, if you want to stimulate an immune response to something like coronavirus, then at that point you would inject some of the RNA, or you would inject a killed virus. Mm-hmm. It's a virus, but it's dead. Right. And you would inject that into that same localized area, because everybody that wants to fight the virus, they're already there because you injected an adjuvant. And an adjuvant is a molecule that's intended to stimulate the immune response in an organism. So while everybody is there with their rifles and shovels and picks and guns, then you inject the agent against which you want the immune response or the immunity. And if that be the case, it would be like the alleged virus, the alleged coronavirus. And I say alleged because the lab where I worked in 1990 at NIH, we worked with coronavirus 30 years ago.
That's right.
And the coronavirus with which we worked had none of the symptomatology that's being reported for COVID-19. Right. So I talked with my old supervisor earlier in the year, and I said, "Hey, Doc," I said, "what is this?" He said, "I don't know, son. What do you think?" I said, "I don't believe it." He said, "Well, people are dying, Victor." I said, "But Doc, people die every day." I said, "You remember we worked with this virus?" He said, "Yes, son, we did." I said, "So what's going on? We didn't find any of this symptomatology 30 years ago." Mm-hmm. And, he had no explanation for it. And I don't either, other than I don't believe it.
That's right. Brother Victor, it's 8:00, bro. We planned on doing 1 hour, but we got some questions. You have the time to stay with us for a little while longer?
Yes, sir.
Praise God. Praise be to Allah. So Kurt Muhammad, first of all, walaikum salam, thank you for coming in. He says, is there interferon in raw milk?
No. There are proteins in raw milk, but those proteins would only be in the first couple of days after a cow goes through gestation, goes through delivery. IgG and IgG and IgM, immunoglobulins. Those are the only proteins with which I'm familiar that would be contained in milk. There would be no need for interferons to be expressed in milk, because what would be the purpose?
Right. And when you were talking about in the first couple of days, you're talking about the colostrum, correct?
Right.
Yes, sir. And just for understanding's sake, the interferons are made by the actual being, not necessarily being passed through liquids or bodily fluids, correct?
I mean, you can find interferon in postnasal drip. So if your nose is running, if you take an aliquot of the postnasal drip, you'll find interferon in there. You'll find interferon in blood. And maybe, I don't know of any other liquid or any other liquid that leaves the body where you would find interferon, because it has a short half-life. And so it's only excreted in a very, very, very small concentration. I think it's a picomole concentration. And that's very small. And it has a short half-life, which means that it doesn't stay in the body long after it's produced. So when you combine the concentration that interferon is produced by the T cells, and the short half-life, then no. And there's a barrier in the mammary system of a cow that where milk is produced in the alveoli, there's a barrier that prevents certain substances from crossing from the cow's body into the milk to protect the life that the milk is intended to sustain.
Yes, sir.
And so there, rationally speaking, the question that I would ask anybody is, what would the cow need to release interferon in the milk for? What's the purpose?
Well, maybe Kurt Muhammad can let you know. I don't know the brother whether he's a scientist or not, but maybe he can clarify. Brother Terrell Muhammad, assalamu alaikum, brothers. I have a question about article from Life Sciences dated September 13th, describing the difference between immunoglobulins and interferons and its different functionality.
What's the question?
He wants to know what the difference is between immunoglobulins and interferons and their functionality. He said he read something in Life Sciences dated back in September 13th.
Well, I'm pretty sure that that article details the difference, but for the sake of those who are listening and may not be familiar with the article, I will tell you. Immunoglobulins are proteins that are produced in the colostrum of a new mother, whether it be a human, a bear, a whale, any mammal. Colostrum is going to be produced in the first 2 days after gestation and after delivery. And that is to provide the initial immunity for the new life, for the baby. That gets the baby started until the baby is able to develop an immune system. And immunoglobulins like IgG, they swallow, they engulf a microorganism like a bacteria or a virus in the body. And once they engulf it, then when the body dispels the IgG or IgM, then it dispels also the virus or the bacteria or the protozoa that's in the body. Interferon is a protein called a cytokine. And what interferon does is what the nomenclature or the name suggests. Interferon got its name from its ability to interfere with the virus' ability to replicate itself. A virus has to use the cells, the T cells of the host organism to generate new viruses or to replicate itself. And it requires 2 enzymes in order to do that. The interferon interferes with the virus ability or the function of those two enzymes in the virus to replicate itself. So when that virus dies, there is no new virus. And so this is how your viral load is reduced after your body produces interferon alpha. Uh, and this is how the body was intended to do that. But when we do whatever it is that we do in America and the world, where we compromise our immune system, I believe that we have destroyed our immune system's ability to produce interferon alpha. And this is why we get all of these viral infections.
Yes, sir. So Kurt Muhammad asks, does one develop antibodies to a virus every time our body is infected, or can our immune system fight off a virus without creating antibodies?
The whole purpose that the body has to fight off a virus comes through the release of cytokines like interferon alpha. That is the primary function of interferon alpha to attack viruses. Also, you have your immunoglobulins, and you have phagocytes and other cells that also consume viruses. I think that antibodies, I don't believe their primary function is antiviral. I believe the primary function of antibodies is against bacteria. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Yes, sir. I would agree with that. So Lynn Ali asks, do you know of any efforts made for outreach to those communities that aren't reading or tuning into information that would educate them about the dangers or potential dangers of the vaccine? My answer would be no, I don't know of anything. What about you, bro?
I mean, we've done videos after video. If you live in America and you're African American or Black, I don't think that anyone would need to caution you about trusting the U.S. government or many of the Caucasian realities. You know, why would someone need to tell you that you need to be leery? Why are you even in America? How did you get here? And if that's not enough evidence to cause you to be leery, then I don't know what anyone else can do.
I would agree. So Charles X, thank you for coming in. Walaikum salam. Kurt Muhammad. Yes, sir. This program will be on my Facebook channel, The Ultimate Wellness Group, THEE, Ultimate Wellness Group, and it also will be on The Ultimate Wellness Group on YouTube. So it'll be there for you to go back and listen as many times as you like to, as you said, for a source of information. Aid Electronics, I do have access to raw organic bovine colostrum. Is freezing it considered a danger? I'm sorry. Is freezing it considered a damage to it? So raw organic bovine colostrum.
Well, listen, I would advise you, and I've written articles on this subject going back 20 years, and I don't know why people, well, when I was in graduate school, I was the assistant manager of the dairy farm on campus. I had to milk the cows. I had to pasteurize the milk, homogenize the milk, put it in boxes, and ship it. I took courses in dairy nutrition, principles of dairy manufacturing. These are actual dairy courses. We took courses as animal scientists in livestock disease and sanitation, animal physiology, animal nutrition, animal reproduction, all these courses. When a cow would come into the milking parlor at 5 a.m. in December, where it's like 16 degrees outside, and we were milking the cows, they came into the milking parlor, and when we had to wash the udder with a solution before we would put the milker on the udder. If the cow tried to kick you, it meant one of two things. Either she had gotten too close to the barbed wire fence and the barbed wire had cut the udder somewhere, or the teats were swollen and sensitive because the cow had either had mastitis. Now, there are two primary diseases that affect dairy cows. One is brucellosis, which is a reproductive disease in the cow. And one is mastitis, which is inflammation or bacterial infection that gets inside the teat. When we would have a solution, a blue solution, we kept inside the milking parlor. Once the cow tried to kick us and we felt the udder, the teat, and felt that it was real tight, then we would express some of the milk out by hand, out of the cow's teeth, and squirt it into this blue solution. If it solidified, then it meant that the cow had mastitis. Now, what we did by USDA regulations, we would still have to milk the cow, but we would disconnect the tubing that took the milk out of the milking parlor into the holding tank. And we would have to disconnect the pipe from the holding tank and put it in the drain to let that milk go down the drain, because you couldn't drink it. Now, why couldn't you drink it? Why wouldn't USDA allow us to allow you to drink the milk? Because it's a scientific fact. It is a fact that if a man or a male drinks that milk where that cow is infected with mastitis, it leads to sterility in men. Now, I've said this a multitude of times. My PhD work was in digestive physiology of ruminant nutrition and ruminant nutrition. That was my PhD work. My PhD dissertation was feeding 100 lactating hosting cows rumen inert fats and bovine somatotropin hormone to increase milk production. So I don't know where you all are getting your information, but this is my background. So the person who's giving you this information, why don't you ask them of their credentials? I think that's reasonable.
Yes, sir. So thank you for that answer, brother. For Terrell Muhammad and Storu Toussaint Fulton, you all's questions have been answered. So please, if you don't mind, go back and listen to the earlier part of the show, because both of your questions, the last questions that you asked, were answered. And I don't want to keep Brother Victor. He's giving us a little extra of his time. So we're going to go ahead and close out today. But you all, please share the show before you get off the show, to if you think it's a worthwhile show that people need to hear. And we're going to let Brother Victor go. We're going to talk about this book club for a few minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and get up out of here. So, Brother Victor, thank you. I know you've been traveling today and you need some rest. So thank you, brother, for spending a little extra time with us. And I pray that your trip is successful and that you are protected and safe, brother. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. What about almond milk? I have talked about almond milk before. Dave Lamique, thank you for coming in, number one, and thank you for the question. But no, almond milk is Not something that I suggest because almonds don't make milk. Almond milk is mostly water. The almond is just there for flavoring. It's just not something that I suggest because nuts have phytonutrients. And, if you do your own research, you can chew nuts and you'll see them come out in your stool the same way they go down. So no, I don't suggest that at all. All of you who are saying it's wonderful information. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So look, we're just going to go over this, the book club information real quick, and then we're going to get out of here. And I pray that I see you all next week. I pray that you see why I wanted to do this show today, and pray that you see that we got some good information this evening, right? And so there is, I didn't mean to put that one up there. There is the first book that we will be reading starting January 1st, and that is How to Eat to Live. Let me get it back up there correctly. How to Eat to Live by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We'll be reading book 1 and book 2, 5 pages a day. Okay, it's pretty easy reading. So, that 5 pages a day is not going to be that tough. You see the book right there as all the time on the show. And we will discuss its application. The way you all hear me talk about the deep science in it, we'll be discussing that. And of course, Sister Erica and I will come back next week and we will talk about the specifics of the Facebook page and how we can interact and have our discussions. And then we'll also lay out kind of some of the ground rules. And there's the other book. So you all please go ahead and find a place that you can get this book. She has it on just about every, place to get books. So go ahead and check out The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. We'll be reading 4 pages out of her book every day, and it will take us January and February to finish both books. So we'll be having some wonderful conversations, as well as, the typical, the Ultimate Wellness Group Transformation Tuesday shows. So thank you all for coming in. I pray that you got some news that you can use. I pray that you understand why in this climate that we're in right now with these vaccines being pushed on, especially the Black, Brown, and the Native communities, why I wanted Brother Victer to come in, because he has experience in the field of biomedical science. And as well, if you heard him talk about Dr. Fauci, he has come to a conclusion about Dr. Fauci that is about experience. And a lot of people that are out in public talking about the fact that we can trust him are doing that because he's an eloquent speaker or because he says things that you may like. And I would rather the person with the experience any day. And I'm sure you all would agree. So again, thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate everybody, the consistent people that come and support, the people that send me information. I can't say enough how much I thank you all, even if this is your first time and you came and you asked a question you just watched. I appreciate you, because I believe, as Brother Victer did, that as spiritual people, we always have to put God first. And so my desire is to have a show that gives quality information, that tells the truth, because I have a responsibility to tell the truth based on what God has blessed me with as, my ability to make a living, to learn, and what I have gone through in my experience. And so I pray that everybody is getting quality information. I pray that the last few programs have given you enough information, at least to take in consideration, so that you can make a good decision. The decision is yours. I believe that making a decision one way or the other for this vaccine is a life or death decision. And let me qualify that, because I have said before that in my evaluation, the medical industry murders more Black, Brown, and Native people than any other industry. Definitely a whole lot more than the police, right? But it's not that you die that day. But if a doctor tells you have cancer, or a doctor gives you a diagnosis, and you start deteriorating from there because of the mental strain, and or because they never give you any answers to your questions on how to solve the problem, then that is a dying process, and you were murdered It just took you 20 years to die instead of like the police when they kill us and we die right there on the scene. And so I know that may be a little graphic, but I want to always be completely honest when I deal with you all, because I don't have anything to hide. I'm not getting paid for these shows, but I definitely want you to have the type of information so that you can keep your life on track and even better than maybe you ever imagined. So again, thank you for coming in. Appreciate your time. I pray that you got news that you can use, and I pray that you'll continue to come back and suggest this show and this channel to other people, right? Because if you think it's quality information, we do have a responsibility to make sure other people know about it. Okay. So again, in America and in the world, it takes a lot of hard work to have good health. So please work hard on your health until we see you next time. Next Tuesday, I have another beautiful show coming for you. But until then, you take care of yourself. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And I pray that you stay safe. Peace.